Before I start, can we just acknowledge something first? No, I mean it. Pay attention here, iPad kids, because otherwise you're gonna forget what I said within 2 minutes. Although that is probably generous. Here it is. Ready? All Monster Hunter games are good games. There, I said it. Now, with that out of the way, Monster Hunter Wilds freaking sucks. Alright, you've read the title, let's begin by defining new, because this kinda just depends on which Monster Hunter games that you've started with. But my definition would be anything after Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, so World, Rise, Wilds, and all their expansions. Everything before it I'll classify as old, sadly. I chose this as World was the first Monster Hunter game to do a lot of things different than most Monster Hunter games before it.
Oh, here we go. Dusk is gonna glaze all over the old games.
Oh hell no. The old games also had their issues, alright? In fact, the first ones were as clunky as a robot, although that comparison doesn't really work nowadays. The controls even for that time were hella uncomfortable, like who in their right mind thought it was a good idea to attack with the right joystick? The animations were super limited, the hitboxes were way bigger than the actual monsters, and honestly took them a bit too long to properly fix that one, although a certain fish would probably disagree. The graphics were, well, awful by today's standards. But Dusk, I thought you liked the older Monster Hunter games. Oh, I do. They just aged a lot. All these things have been improved over the years, but have ultimately still shaped the direction of the franchise. So to come to a conclusion here, some of these things have been streamlined, but not a single one has been drastically changed, and the combat is still the same today. In a nutshell, it's timing your animations correctly after reading the monster's animations. It's not like you had much choice as your own animations were really freaking clunky. This also made it so you basically had no choice but to analyze the monsters and realize certain patterns that they would have, which attacks would come after another until you found an opening to attack. Or just do it like me and run in and get killed until your tiny brain realizes that there's probably another attack coming. That's what they call learning from experience. You could imagine that if one would, let's say, speed up the hunter's animations, that this would turn into a whole nother game. Oh, hold on, that's a bit much. You can't quite call this franchise a hack and slash game. Yet. I wrote this far before the Ascendance DLC was even announced, but it truly made me think, were the DMC events from the past just hints at what was to come? I guess we'll never know. The core gameplay is also still the same, and was rather simple. Smack a monster in order to gain their monster bits and then turn those bits into good old caveman fashion, which allowed you to defeat the next monster. It's a pretty simple concept, and none of the armors or weapons were ever the best in all situations due to the fact that elemental strengths and weaknesses decided what weapons and armor you needed. This was the second thing setting Monster Hunter apart from other games besides its animation commitment. There, alright, we went over the core loop. What else was there? Ah yeah, preparations. These were cool. You could eat for food before a quest which gave you buffs. You had to make sure that you had enough potions for healing, some form of meat for stamina, whetstones to sharpen your piece of shit weapon, hot and cold drinks for different climates, different items for different ailments, so... Okay, maybe it wasn't as cool as I made it out to be, but somehow this was fun. I get it, iPad kids. I'd probably also find this boring if I was brought up on crack by parents that cared more about Clash Royale on their phone than you, but hey, it was a different time back then, okay? It's funny actually how we had world babies asking for better food in Monster Hunter Rise. It's like, yeah, now you know what it was like for us to play the newer games, although our experience was that times 1,000. Another big part of the preparations was the farm, allowing you to farm several different items to combine and prepare you for future hunts. Straight up seeing the Palicos doing their thing was something else. You would gather resources and quests as you needed different items from different locations. You would do side quests to unlock improvements like a bigger farm, better food buffs, new items to farm. You know, you would actually see your quests pay off as you completed them. Now these quest lists remind me of doing groceries. It's just a freaking checklist. And all of this was done by up to 4 players, a simple straightforward fight between the player and the monster. Gosh, the vibes back then, man, I miss it. Now I'm sure somebody is going to be watching this going, but Dusk, you're just tripping, it's all nostalgia. And my answer is, nah, go back and play the old games, like try. It's literally uncomparable. The lobbies felt alive, the people would hang out and say hi to each other, they would have chats, use the emotes, arm wrestle, come up with strategies. It was a chill experience like no other. And yes, I miss it. But don't take my word for it. It seems that everybody who has played Try seems to think the same thing when it comes to the multiplayer aspect of this game. Now forward to today and we're starting to lose a lot of these aspects, which are what makes Monster Hunter, well, Monster Hunter. To start off, hot and cold drinks were completely removed in Rise, although it's not that big a deal as they were present in World and Wilds, but I see what you're doing, Capcom. Don't think that I won't notice or you're experimenting with removing features. Perhaps it's time to stop going all Doofensmeerch on them and streamline them to the point where they're basically non-existent.
Behold the Begoninator! How do you like me now, Perry the Gonapus?
The farms have been completely reduced to a menu screen, losing all immersion there, which is really a shame as seeing your Palicos working there was super wholesome. They were also not my slaves, by the way. I paid them very well. I paid them in points and I also paid them with more work. These also gave you a reason to care about the place you were in and to look around. The preparations have mostly been removed, or at the very least streamlined to the point where you just press 2 buttons and are ready to go on any quest. I would be happy to take a middle ground here, but nope, preparations had to go. And even though convenient sometimes, it is definitely another aspect gone. You can't forget your whetstones, you can't run out of them as they're literally infinite. Things like the barbecue spit are always there. The iconic "so tasty" voice line is completely gone. That one is particularly unacceptable. You can just refill all your items, potions, traps, bullets, all of it by going back to base. So the challenge of making it work with whatever is available is completely gone. Alright, look, I know that I sound like a whining chick when I mention all these things, alright? But I have valid reasons, okay? I'm getting there. I don't understand the developers. On the one hand, they want to make these modern and accessible changes, and I get it, you know, gotta go along with the times. But on the other hand, they insist that you shouldn't have a health bar for monsters because, well, immersion, and yet they were fine with damage numbers. Sure, I know you can look at the icons above the monsters on the minimap to have an idea of their health, but you get my point. And yes, you can turn damage numbers off as well, for now. But in my opinion, they shouldn't have been there in the first place. All these things that I've mentioned so far are what made Monster Hunter unique. But we don't want a unique game, we want your money.
Hello, I like money.
In Monster Hunter World, I kind of felt like they went overboard with gadgets too. They added mantles, a gimmick, then Clutch Claw, another gimmick, then Slinger, another gimmick.
Go, gadget camera. The camera never lies. Look at that, why it's horrible.
Now during the fights, you're doing all of these things, and I missed the fight between just me and the monster, but now I'm forced to do all this other stuff that I don't want to do. It's just so much to the point where it doesn't really feel like Monster Hunter anymore. This is besides the fact that World decided to ditch the whole formula completely after making Fatalis armor the best in every situation. Gunner armor, Fatalis. Defensive armor, Fatalis. Lance armor, Fatalis. Meta damage, Fatalis. Need your taxes done, Fatalis. The whole elemental resistance system could completely be thrown out the window as the answer was always Fatalis anyway. Now I've mentioned this problem before and people said, well duh, the final boss is the best gear, what's new? Well, let me tell you, that is new, as it goes in against the whole system. This is besides the fact that we didn't really have a final boss before. It was just the last monster on the list really, so don't be surprised that I didn't expect Fatalis armor to literally be the best in every single situation, because yes, that is unique within Monster Hunter. Heck, I already got annoyed by Atul Ka armor and that wasn't even meta. Just too good in too many scenarios. Next time they should at least make it look good though, that armor was freaking hideous. Also, the raw meta in World was awful. Hundreds of weapons available for people to just use the same two, as they ended up skipping elemental weapons altogether. I thought that was the only good part about Elatreon, but then people complained about the fact they had to use elemental weapons, and my only reply was, go play something other than Monster Hunter then, you barbarians, as you clearly don't like this game. I'm not even going to talk about the monster bits sprinkled on top of the metal and bone weapons. That was also quite disappointing, but enough bitching about World. At least we can still enjoy the story together. Psych. After Monster Hunter World ruined multiplayer for new players by forcing you to watch cutscenes before you could join each other, they were heavily criticized for this decision. So what do? They add the same thing to Wilds. What else would you do? Fix things? Could you imagine? That would require effort. The craziest part is that it didn't even need to be fixed, because this was never even a problem in the older games, so all they had to do is copy their old system. Anyways, my point is, the franchise clearly didn't just change to be better. Instead, it was directed at a broader audience, which in and of itself isn't too bad. In fact, it could be a really good thing as more budget becomes available, allowing for bigger and better games. But this was also the moment I realized, is going to start chasing the money. And everyone should know that a game that is made for everyone will appeal to no one. It made it easy predicting that Wilds would attempt to be an open world game, as that is what literally every franchise does when they try to appeal to the masses, right? Zelda. If we keep going in this direction, the next Monster Hunter game might get a season pass, but at least we can still hunt together, right? I mean, kinda, I guess. Even the social aspect has been killed, which is kinda weird considering that we now have lobbies that hold up to 16 people and even up to 100 in Wilds. But the SOS system has deleted the whole social aspect of this game. So many people in one place but nobody says a word. In previous games you would communicate with other hunters, ask them what they needed, and after a quest you would return together to the lobby and talk about the quests or each other's armor. You could choose not to talk if you didn't feel like it. At least it was encouraged. Now it's just gone. Post or join an SOS quest and never speak a word. I'm getting to the peak of this video, yeah, the reason I made it, the whole point, and that is that we're losing the core aspects. Monster Hunter Wilds added the focus mode, and this in and of itself is fine, but they could have implemented it a bit better, as it is starting to remove that last bit of satisfaction that you could get by mastering a weapon. A great example is Greatsword. Rest in peace, high skill ceiling weapon. You can now just 360 no scope your charges. The next step is probably auto aim. My point is we're getting closer to a hack and slash game with each iteration, as we are spoon-fed solutions to problems that didn't exist. Item gathering can now be done by entering an area and selecting the items in a menu. The game pre-selects the right potions for you. The health bar now shows you what health you're about to lose if you don't get out of the way of an attack, taking away all the suspense of whether or not you were gonna survive a hit. They might as well just change our diapers and feed us milk at this point, because they're already treating us like babies. Now you could probably imagine that a veteran like me is sad to see this franchise headed in a direction that goes more and more away from its core identity. Now add the fact that these three latest Monster Hunters combined have more than $1,500 in microtransactions. Geez, that's a lot of money. And you might start to understand my concern. Some of the events in Wilds now just seem to be excuses to sell you more DLC items. And just to be clear, I've already stopped bitching about microtransactions, it's just that I want to emphasize that the direction is wrong. The very old Monster Hunter games also had their flaws, and going back to the first 3 games is a real wake-up call. And it shows that there have been some tremendous improvements. But we're now at the point where the latest Monster Hunter feels like a cash grab after they released it too early on purpose to please shareholders. And it is still the best-selling Monster Hunter game at launch. Let that sink in for a moment. It is clear that all these changes went pretty far, but the question is, at what point is it no longer a Monster Hunter game, because the newer games are missing most core aspects, which is why I would say that these games are still good games, but the older ones are better Monster Hunter games.